But every time you have a victory in the Lord, there's always the enemy to start trying to mess it up. And so there's opposition. And there's opposition, and there's attack, and there's controversy. And that's when you have to stand, because God will even do something greater when you're getting attacked. Stand, because he has something even greater if you press through the attack. There have been many controversies in church history. In the history of the, quote, organized church. It doesn't mean that they were all real believers or not, but some of the famous ones were, one was called Arianism, which held that the Messiah, while the Son of God, was not quite as divine as the Father and wasn't eternal. Nestorianism, that Jesus, Messiah, and the Son of God were not quite the same. His humanity and his divinity were kind of separated. The Gnostics and the Docetists, which said Messiah's body was just an illusion because they said that the physical word is evil, so it had to be an illusion that he was even here. The Marcionites, that the God of the Hebrew Bible was different from the God of the New Testament. In other words, the God of, and some believers still act like that's true. The God of the Old Testament is always angry in a bad mood. The God of the New Testament, he has a change of heart. He's a nice God. Not true, not true. Pelagianism, that you could earn your way to heaven without grace, and much, much more. But the first of all controversies in the, quote, church or faith was very different. Well, this is actually the true church. This is Acts, and here it is. Acts 15, verse 1. Some men came down from Judea and began teaching the brethren, unless you are circumcised according to the custom of Moses, you cannot be saved. Okay. The year is approximately 49 AD. This is an event that is of such gigantic importance. Without this, many of you, or most of you, wouldn't be saved today. All those who come to the Messiah who are not Jewish by birth, back then had either been proselytes, meaning they had already converted, or God-fearers, and they may have already been circumcised. Only Cornelius, the Roman centurion in Caesarea, who called for Peter to come and was the first one to be baptized, only he didn't fit the pattern. But that event was apparently seen as something exceptional. Didn't fit in. Not for changing a policy. And they may have assumed that Cornelius would then go under the law and be circumcised. A persecution comes to the believers in Jerusalem, and it scatters them. Some of them end up in Antioch. In Antioch, it's Jew and Gentile. And there's no the Bible doesn't speak about a distinction, they're just there. And they start, from Antioch comes the first world mission, as we saw, Paul and Barnabas. And when Paul goes and Barnabas, for the first time, they're preaching directly to the Gentiles. It's not just, okay, we went here and then, it's kind of a side, people are coming as we seek for the Jewish people to come. But now they're going directly to the Gentiles. So this was a matter of far-reaching concern to Jerusalem. They're saying, what's going on here now? Because things are changing. It is about 19 years after the crucifixion, and to get an idea, and the resurrection. That would be like, the resurrection and the crucifixion would be like when 9/11 happened, okay? That's about 19 years ago or so. So that's where you are. That's how far they are. So here, now they went all that time, though, almost 20 years, without coming to this decision about circumcision. That means they were pretty much all Jewish believers, except for the God-fearing Gentiles, because that's all that it was. But now it starts going on. So this is the first church issue controversy for Christianity, what would be known as that later on, is focused not on all these other things that came later, but on circumcision. That shows you right there how Jewish the faith is. The first church controversy is about circumcision. They thought that in order to become a Christian, you had to be circumcised, or you had to become Jewish by flesh. And there. So it comes all the way up to this point. Now it also shows you not only how Jewish your faith is, and it's for everybody, Jew and Gentile, but it's what God has given. But also it shows you how far things departed, because just about in the 4th century, the 300s, not that long, much long later when you look at the whole age, Believers, what the church councils were saying, that any believer that still celebrated the Jewish holidays was condemned. It actually made a thing that if you celebrated Passover, you celebrate the death of Messiah, which happened on Passover, you were condemned. It was outlawed. They called them those who did the Quartodecimans, which sounds like a heresy, but it simply means the 14th day of the month. That's Passover. So see how far it went from its roots, when the very first thing was, can we let in non-Jewish people without being circumcised? Can you become a Christian without being circumcised? It comes along because of a great victory. Paul and Barnabas go out and Gentiles are coming in. But every time you have a victory in the Lord, there's always the enemy to start trying to mess it up. And so there's opposition. And there's attack, and there's controversy. And that's when you have to stand, because God will even do something greater when you're getting attacked. Stand, because he has something even greater if you press through the attack. Acts 15, verse 1. Some men came down, as I said, from Judea, began teaching, you must be circumcised according to Moses, or you cannot be saved. They became known. They're teaching that circumcision for men is essential for salvation. They became known as, they're called Judaizers. Interesting, because that it says something, because the New Testament is completely Jewish, but the ones who are under the law, that's what they associate, well, the Jewish people under the law, but the whole New Testament is Jewish. Verse 2. When Paul and Barnabas had great dissension and debate with them, the brethren, so this happened because there was a debate with Paul and Barnabas and these people. When that happened, the brethren determined that Paul and Barnabas and some others should go up to Jerusalem to the apostles and to the elders concerning the issue. So here they are, they're debating. Now, much debate is not of God, but sometimes there are debates that are of God, as long as the purpose is the love and the purposes of God, for him, not for us. So the controversy leads to the Council of Jerusalem. The first of all church councils is the Council of Jerusalem, which ultimately is going to lead to the opening up of the gospel to the world, to the nations. Paul and Barnabas are appointed to go there from Antioch, kind of representing Antioch. Paul, when he speaks, is not going to speak so much about theology, although he was a brilliant theologian. But he basically, and so in Peter, they're basically going to say what God has done. Look, guys, look at what God is doing. God is saving the Gentiles. It's bigger than what you imagine. It's interesting because it goes on when Paul, when he wrote Galatians, it might have been written before this council. So when he's talking about the law, you guys are back on the law. It may have been one of the things that were leading up to the council, because he doesn't mention the council in Galatians. This is Jonathan Cahn. Thanks for watching. The Josiah Manifesto and all my books you can get anywhere, Amazon, wherever books are sold. Shalom.